Hey, this is Kieron, Coach's Corner Chats, and joining me is Brad Rodda. Brad, where are you at and what are you up to?
First and foremost, Kieron, a massive thank you for having me on. It's something that I've wanted to do for quite a while. I've looked forward to it. You've had some brilliant other guests on. It's been really informative for me. So I've got to start by saying thank you for having me on. Currently in Mansfield in the UK. Just having a little bit of downtime at the moment. I'm a director of soccer at Future Pro USA. So obviously we're going into a busy period. We are in a busy period of helping our players get their scholarships in the US, and a little bit of downtime from my role as an academy coach at Mansfield Town as well. So yeah, that's where we're at right now.
You just mentioned Future Pro USA and helping players get overseas. What does that entail? Like, what's your job and kind of the day in, day out type thing?
Yeah, so I've been with Future Pro USA now for coming up to 8 years. Essentially, we're one of a few companies that do this type of thing. We help players from the UK, Ireland, from all over the world. We are predominantly based in the UK. That's where the majority of our clients are based, but we have got clients all over the world. And our role is to help them through as you know, the ever-changing and sometimes difficult landscape of getting recruited by college soccer programs in America. It's what I did. I came over to the US in 2013. Started off at junior college and then transferred on to a 4-year school. And that's where my love affair with college soccer started. And that's what I do day to day. I'm very fortunate to run the business here and help many players go on that same journey as myself. So that's what I do day to day. It's grown a lot over the last, I'd say probably over the last 5 years in particular. Like I say, I've been on board now for 8 years, coming up to 8 years, and the growth and the change and sort of the ability of ours to help more players has changed tremendously, and we're really proud of that. So that's something that I'm fortunate to do every day. I can't really call it a job because I love it that much. So it's a privilege to be able to do that, and obviously in my spare time as well, I coach with the academy at Mansfield Town as well. So yeah, there's no minutes get wasted for me, not at all.
You mentioned going over and playing in the US. What is the draw for players that are in the UK and Ireland to go and experience soccer in the US?
I think, and this is definitely sort of the place that I come from when I'm talking, with my players or the players that, we potentially get the opportunity to work with. I think that for us here in the UK, unless you are in a professional environment, so you are what's called what we would call it a scholar, so a youth team apprentice, someone that's maybe on the books of, your full-time clubs, your professional clubs. There really isn't anything out there that kind of, mimics that sort of environment, which is, your full-time football. And they do education alongside of it as well. And bear in mind, this is for 16 to 18-year-olds, not necessarily your university-age students or university-age players, rather. These are just for your 16 to 18-year-olds. And the idea of obviously being in these academies is to play football primarily. They do, like I say, a bit of an education course, and they do a qualification that they're mandated to do. But, there's nothing out there for university students where, you want to play in a full-time environment, but also but also study full-time as well. And that's why I went over to the States, because I got released from Mansfield, missed out on my opportunity to become a pro footballer. I'm a massive fan of the club as well, so hit me double hard. But I suppose I came to that crossroads like a lot of players do in the UK in particular, and they don't really know what they want their next step to be. Well, they do know what they want their next step to be, but they don't know where they can attain it, which is, like I say, that full-time football in a professional style environment with brilliant facilities, with opportunities to progress into the pro game, but also to study for a degree alongside of it. And I think that for me, again, going back to my own experience, looking at all the different pathways that I had available to me, I was kind of almost needing to compromise one over the other. And it was kind of, if I went down the football route, maybe played non-league football, I knew that a pro club wasn't coming anytime soon. I kind of exhausted those opportunities. It was dawning on me, right, okay, mate, you need to have something else lined up here. So going into non-league football, maybe working my way up. You've all heard stories about the Jamie Vardys and Chris Smallings of the world, but, they are one in a million, So I think that, I could have stayed non-league, but maybe, am I going to be able to do my education alongside it? Full-time work? Am I going to be able to do full-time work with studying for a degree and playing at a decent level? All these things go through your head. And then when I find out about going over to the States, and I found out again about that opportunity to fuse your high-level sport, opportunities to maybe progress into the pro game whilst doing your degree at the same time, not needing to compromise on one or the other, that was the biggest thing for me. And that's kind of the message that I convey, you know, when I sit in front of thousands of players, you know, whether it's on the boys' side or the girls' side, and the passion that I've got and the enthusiasm that I've got and my staff have got as well for this pathway comes from that ability to do both, which is you don't have to compromise your academics to suit your football or your football to suit your academics. You've got the opportunity to do both. That's what the biggest draw is, I think, for the majority of players that I work with in particular.
You mentioned being a fan of Mansfield Town and being a part of it. Have you been born and raised in Mansfield?
Yeah. Born and raised in Mansfield. It's a place that not a lot of people, definitely in the US, would have heard of. I know there's a Mansfield in Ohio, so maybe you know that one. But yeah, born and raised in Mansfield. Really lucky for the background that I had in terms of the upbringing that my mum and dad gave me and my sister. It's a very working class town. It's an old coal mining town, which was obviously that industry was decimated, you know, years and years ago. That's another conversation. So it's a little bit of it's a hard town. It's a gritty place. Really fortunate from a football perspective that I was picked up by Mansfield quite early. Enjoyed, you know, the vast majority of my youth career there under some brilliant coaches and like I say, playing for my club and the club that I've supported and been a season ticket holder at since the age of 5. So, you know, it's it's ingrained in me that.
You mentioned at some point, though, the club says, we don't see you moving on with us. What's that like? How do you deal with that kind of just that bad news and then start looking at other options?
Yes, so my story was actually a little bit different in terms of, like, you know, your traditional release, because in academies, you know, up and down the country, you know, there comes a time where at the end of every single year, you know, there's what's called a retain and release. And back when I was at Mansfield, we all didn't get released. And I say we all because that's part of the story. We all got released, not just one or two of us. You know, usually it's maybe a handful of you, or 1 or 2 years that get released at the end of the year. You know, the club says, look, I'm sorry, it's not going to work. We're not going to offer you another deal, or we're not going to offer you a scholarship, well, whatever it's going to be. But for us, we were at a time where the first team, Mansfield's first team, we actually got relegated to what's now known as the National League. So that's the step below League Two. So that's considered what's called non-league here in England. And once you get relegated into non-league, then you have some serious implications on the financial side of things. And the first thing to go for most clubs is their academy. They kind of strip it all back and think, right, okay, we've got to put all our resources back into the first team, and the academy is usually, like I say, one of the first things to go. So that happened to us. We were all released. We were all told that the academy was closing down. There was going to be no academy anymore. So we were all left at that point to, you know, go and find other clubs. Trialed around at a few clubs, was unsuccessful. Kind of went on for a bit of time trying to figure out kind of what my next step was going to be. I tried to find another club, as I say, just wasn't good enough ultimately to get into another club. And that kind of took me to a point where, you know, again, this crossroads of what am I going to do next? And that's when I started looking at my exit pathways, and going to America and playing college soccer was by far the standout choice result of that. So, like I say, my release process wasn't like a conventional release process, because we all did. It was a state of the club scenario rather than me as an individual. But it didn't hurt any less, let me tell you. It probably hurt more as well, because of obviously being such a massive fan of the club.
When you start making that decision to look at the college experience here in the U.S., what does that even look like? Are you just kind of cold emailing and reaching out? What options, like kind of the story that you went on to get you over here?
So I think that's probably where it differs, you know, being an international than being a domestic student, right? Because our recruitment process, it does look very different, because we're over here and we are almost always going into it completely blind and completely sort of, you know, into the unknown as such. So what happened for me was around the time I left Mansfield and obviously was trying around other clubs and joined other clubs and various things were going on. I was in touch with a lot of people who were involved at Mansfield at the time, and I kept in touch with them. And they said, "Look, you should always think about going to America." And there was one lad in particular, a lad called Sean Link, who's also from Mansfield. God bless him, he's no longer with us, but he went out to America. I went to Barton Junior College in Kansas. And he was a few years older than me, but I kind of followed his journey from afar. And obviously, I was coached by his older brother, Mark, who's massive influence on my coaching to this day. We kind of went through the same sort of company as Sean went through. That's kind of where it came from, that kind of word of mouth. Again, people saying you'd be a good fit for it, and sort of exploring everything that was available to me. I just wanted to carry on playing, and I wanted to give myself the opportunity of progressing. Again, the academic aspect was a draw as well. So I went through the same company that Sean did. It's a company that's called Sporting Chance USA. I'm not sure if they're doing anything these days, but Phil Selby was the guy there. Really nice bloke. Got me through the process and just performed the normal sort of roles of a company of what Future Pro USA did. Helped me get in touch with schools. I actually only spoke to one school. It was Genesee Community College up in Western New York, and that was it. It moved very, very quickly. But I suppose, like I say, that kind of underlines the differences between being an international, particularly from Britain, as opposed to the process for a domestic student, because I know domestic students will do, a lot of them are represented by companies like us, but they will obviously do a lot of the legwork for themselves, again, reaching out to schools and say, hey, I'm at this tournament this weekend and all that kind of stuff. I think being in the UK, you really do need someone to help you sort of go through that process, and that's exactly how I kind of went through it.
You mentioned the town being close-knit and hardworking, and your parents. What was that conversation like when you said, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm about to head to New York to do schooling and play?
They were delighted for me, absolutely delighted. And I think that, again, these conversations that were being had about, kind of the States being a potential option for me, they were being had with my mum and dad being there. And I was really lucky as well that we used to vacation in America every single year. We used to go down to Florida. Again, really fortunate that my mum and dad would save every penny that they had every single year to take me and my sister over down to Orlando and do the theme parks and all that kind of usual stuff. But that kind of sort of, I suppose, instilled a bit of an affinity there really for the US first and foremost. Maybe planted the seed that I didn't know was there, that maybe I'd like to be here one day. You're not thinking about that at the age of 9, 10 when you're on roller coasters, obviously, but maybe that's something that was in the back of my mind. But my mum and dad were so supportive, and when they found out about the opportunity, I think that they whilst my mum, I know, was terrified at the thought of me going over to America and living by myself and having to cook my own meals and do my own laundry and stuff like that. I think that both my mum and my dad were incredibly supportive, and in every way, financially, emotionally, they wanted me to go on that journey, and they were 100% supportive of that.
As you make the trip over to New York, when you look back, what were those first experiences of not just the culture, but you've got the soccer side of things? It's a different vibe. How was that experience of transitioning from the UK vibe to the US vibe?
I get that question all the time from the clients and the prospective clients that I work with at Future Pro USA, and I think that when I look back, I was probably a little bit sort of naive, might be the right word, but also as well, I'm just completely, we have an expression that, I don't know whether it's used so much in the US, but a bit wet behind the ears, a little bit kind of, you don't really know what you're going into, but you're not bothered. You think, right, I'm going to play football and that's it. And I think that kind of, that innocence of not really understanding kind of what I was doing in terms of, you're moving 4,500 miles away and all that just helped me settle in, straight away pretty much. So when I turn up in New York, as you say, and I, get greeted with this unbelievable sort of campus where the facilities in the locker room, in the weight room, and the field that we use were absolutely second to none. And by the way, I've been in a professional environment. I've been in an environment that was a professional football club, and all players that are in that environment, their job was to develop us into potentially being professional footballers. It was worlds and worlds above that. And I think that when you head into that environment, I, again, probably being a little bit sort of not really understanding kind of the magnitude of what I was doing, like I've already said, but also, turning up to that pitch for the first time with loads of other internationals, all of a really high level, knowing that we had a good team, knowing that, this was going to be the next 4 years of my life, hopefully. Absolutely unbelievable. I remember that feeling so vividly. I remember the first time that we even had a kickabout just, with the lads on the field, it was the first day that we got there. And I remember thinking, this is exactly where I want to be. This is exactly where I should be.
So as you're playing there in New York, do you spend your entire career there, or do you bounce to another college?
No, so I was at Genesee Community College for the first 2 years, Division 3 junior college program. Had a brilliant 2 years there. I've still got so much love for that program, for the little city of Batavia and the program that I was once a part of. But I moved on after 2 years, obviously, as you would, being at a junior college. depending on who you speak to, I overachieved a little bit for a player of my ability while I was at Genesee. But transferred on to Concord University, D2 program down in West Virginia. Massive culture shock, but I'm so grateful that I experienced it. Just completely different way of life down in southern West Virginia, up in the mountains in the Appalachians. So yeah, that's where I ended up after my 2 years of JUCO. And that's from there. That's when the coaching started after that.
I was just going to ask, at what point does the idea, you talk about one of your buddies that, you know, you kind of watched go over to Kansas and do his thing and kind of implement, kind of follow him. At what point did you start thinking, man, maybe coaching is something that I'd be good at?
I was always told it. A bit of a backhanded compliment, really, when people were saying you'd make a much better coach than you would a player. but they were absolutely right, by the way. They were back on the money with that. But I always had the idea that I wanted to coach. You know, for me, Kieron, I just love the game. I absolutely love the game. I've been obsessed with it from being a very young lad. I think I've got a different kind of love for the game as well because I love my hometown club. You know, we're a League One club. I've seen my club, you know, on the brink of, you know, of dissolution, of being, of going into administration, of being liquidated, and I've seen us, you know, get promoted last year. You know, I love my club. I love my football. I love the game completely differently to I think like a lot of people would, and I don't mean that in a way that's disrespectful to other people, but I just know how much that my sort of background has instilled that love of the game for me. And as I say, I think that from a very early age, I was very impressionable. Still, I'm quite impressionable in some ways, even at the age of 30. And I think that I always listened to my coaches. I always knew that I understood the game. I think that's one thing. I'm quite self-deprecating about myself in a lot of ways, but I know that I understand football. I know I understand the game. And I understand how to communicate with people. So I always knew that there'd be an opportunity, hopefully in the future, to become a coach. And when I graduated from Concord, I had conversations with my coach at the time, Steve Barrett, and he was also an English chap from Colchester originally. So we spoke a lot about kind of what my next steps were going to be, you know, going into coaching, and he thought I'd be a good fit for it. So from there, just kind of looked for loads of GA positions, and there was one fella that wanted to take a chance on me, which was a bloke called Mark Howlett, who was the head coach of Buffalo State College at the time. Brought me up there, got me involved with a local club, earning a little bit of cash up there as well, and I was a volunteer assistant coach with Buffalo State as well. So yeah, I think that I knew for a long time, but I needed someone to give me an opportunity, and fortunately, I think looking back, I kind of put myself in enough positions to get an opportunity through just being someone that wanted to speak to anybody and everybody just to see where those opportunities are. But it was from an early age I knew I wanted to coach.
When you look back at that conversation with the coach at Concord who says, here, let's see if we can get you to that opportunity to start coaching, what were some of the things that you enjoyed about his coaching that you kind of taken and used in your coaching now?
I think it's become a little bit cliched, really, but one thing that Coach Barrett, and I have to say, not Coach Barrett, I'm talking Coach Ken Gavin at Genesee, I'm talking, you know, Coach Howlett at Buffalo State, who I worked under, all the other coaches that I've worked under or with or played for or whatever, it's their ability to connect with people. And I think that what I realised, I was always a natural leader. I was quite fortunate that I had that as kind of part of my skill set. Always a natural leader in the environments that I was in, and I felt that translated into it translated into sort of being a good coach, should I say, because I'm just naturally a people person. And I think when I had those conversations, you say with Coach Barrett, I think that I saw a lot of my traits kind of in kind of what Coach was doing, how he communicated with us, how he made us feel about not just the game and how he infused us about that, because that's obviously the main thing that we're there for, but how he was able to communicate with us about, you know, developing us in other areas as well, like the transcended football. So those influences I had, so those people that I've just named, I looked at kind of how they affected me positively, and I thought, you know what, I want to affect people in that way. I want to be able to develop them as players, as people, give them a good experience, and hopefully, positively impact their lives in one way or another. That's not my job to decide kind of how I've positively impacted them. That's up to them to decide. But I kind of know what I'm going after. I know kind of how I want them to how I'd like to make them feel, because I know that how I'm sure that they will want to feel is how I want to feel, you know. So yeah, that's kind of where those influences kind of led.
when people hear volunteer assistant, people start thinking, holy moly, how do you pay for rent and how do you get by? Like, how does a young coach survive being a volunteer coach and making, as you said, some money doing some club kind of gigs?
I suppose that's kind of where it differs, doesn't it, between the US landscape and in the UK. So obviously in the US, you can earn a decent wedge of money by being a club coach, and obviously maybe you've got other gigs on the side. Whether you're coaching college or again like club, which you spoke about, various different bits and bobs within the game. And that's what I did. I was really fortunate again that Coach Howlett set me up with a local club at the time, and that allowed me to coach a few teams and earn a little bit of money and help me pay rent. And my girlfriend at the time was also living in Buffalo as well, so that helped a lot. But I suppose it's just about people putting you in the right places. Now here in the UK, very different. It's very difficult to earn a full-time living. I think I'd say it's probably nigh on impossible to make a full-time living, unless you're at a professional club. And I think that, you spoke there just then, Kieron, about, being a volunteer. I think that's where it has to come from. I think that a lot of, when I speak to young coaches these days, and I can, pass on kind of the limited wisdom that I've got, I try and talk to them about paying their dues. That's a phrase that I've heard a lot on this podcast in particular, is paying their dues, but it's absolutely true. If several people are saying it, then it's got to be true. There's got to be a pattern emerging somewhere. And I think that to get yourself into that position where, like you say, you can pay your way, you can pay your rent, you can sustain your life, you've got to be able to go out and do your volunteering. You've got to be able to, again, pay those dues, show willingness of being a good person, someone that wants to go above and beyond, that will do what's more than what's required of them. And obviously you've got to have a little bit of ability as well. Hopefully you can put that on display by the positions you put yourself in. But that's it really. That's where it all comes from, is knowing the right people. But also when you get into those places, you've got to be able to show that willingness.
The other side of coaching, and you kind of mentioned it about at that time having the girlfriend in Buffalo. What's it like being a young coach that's trying to just drive and become, that next step in their coaching journey, but also balancing the relationship side and life in general as well?
Yeah, and I think that everyone, and you yourself will probably agree, I think that, if you want to coach and you want to coach at a good level, if you want to be good at anything, right, it's going to take up time. You need someone that's understanding. You need, if you've got a partner, you need them to be very understanding. I'm really fortunate that my fiance is so understanding of me and kind of the effort levels that I put into, running Future Pro USA, but also my hobby that I get paid for, which is my coaching with Mansfield, alongside my other stuff, because I go and watch Mansfield on a Saturday at 3:00, just like any fan would. And like you say, balancing everything is pretty difficult, but I think that there's got to be an acceptance that, if you want to make your way in football, if you want to make your way in coaching or in any area of the game, there's a lot of sacrifice that goes with it. So again, having some people around you that understand, having people that understand that how driven you are and how understand the demands that are put on you, not only by kind of the industry as a whole, but by yourself to become successful. That is so important. But again, it's that acceptance to understand, look, there's a lot of hours to put in here. And if I want to progress and if I want to succeed as a coach, again, as an analyst, or as a recruiter, as an agent, whatever it may be, you've got to be able to put the time in. So it's a lot of hours. It's a lot of kind of unpaid work, I suppose, right at the start. But again, you build stock. I'm a big believer in building stock and in yourself to a point where you accumulate all those 3 hours of labor, I suppose, and just being around and being someone that is, being known as someone that's a good bloke, good at what he does. I think it pays dividends in the end, but it's about understanding. You've got to get to that. You've got to do all that to get to that.
So you're coaching in Buffalo, doing your thing. What's the next step in your coaching journey?
So I was in Buffalo until around about March 2018. Decided to come home. There was a few things at the time that made me think, I think I need a new challenge here. Obviously, being a Brit in America as well, you're thinking about visas and all that other kind of stuff that puts a completely different spin on everything and what you think about kind of what your potential opportunities are. And I just kind of made the decision. It was a big decision at the time that I'm going to come home and I'm going to try something else, and I'm going to try and see what's left at home for me. So originally I was going to do my master's in football development. And there was a course on a Master of Science in Football Development down at Southampton Solent. I'm not sure if I pronounced that properly, but Southampton Solent University down on the south coast. And a part of that, obviously, master's degree first and foremost, football development, brilliant title, but also as well within that you get a UEFA B qualification, which is obviously a world-renowned qualification and something that, you know, if you want to coach at a good level, you want to aspire to that and beyond. So that was kind of going to be my first steps. But then it was weird because 2 days later, 2 days before I was due to go down to Southampton in September time of 2018, I actually was just kind of looking through a job site in the UK called Indeed, and there was a job that came up for Future Pro USA, and immediately it just set something off in me. And from that point, I applied, and within 48 hours, I'd completely binned off the idea of going down to Southampton. I know my mum and dad were like, well, hang on a minute, mate, like, what are you doing? You're supposed to go down to Southampton in 2 days' time, and you've kind of completely 180'd on all of that to take this job at Future Pro USA, you know, this company we've not even heard of before. What are you doing, kind of thing? And I just knew it was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be back around college soccer. I missed it so much. I still miss it to this day. But being involved in college soccer in some capacity was what I wanted and needed to do. It was a burning desire to do that. So, been off going down to Southampton, started work at a Future Pro USA, kind of rest is history with that. But alongside that, started coaching at a local grassroots club called G3A, which is based in Mansfield. Just did the under-9s team there. Kept in touch with a couple of people that I knew, and they'd heard of that was doing decent things at G3A, and I ended up being what's called a pre-academy coach at Mansfield Town. So pre-academy is kind of, you know, your under 7s, under 8s age groups before you can officially become an academy player. They play in local grassroots leagues, and I was asked to take the under 8s team there by Jack Hawkins, who's the foundation phase lead and the assistant academy manager at Mansfield now. Fantastic bloke, someone that I've learned so much off in the last couple of years that I've worked with him. And from there, it kind of snowballed, became the pre-academy lead at Mansfield. So I was in charge of recruiting the next cohort of players that were going to be forming our under-9s team. Gave me a brilliant experience because, again, it's foundation phase. It's the younger players. It's not quite the older players that we work with here at Future Pro USA. So I get a completely different perspective on coaching, on communicating with young people, on working with parents as well. But again, a fantastic experience. And then it came an opportunity whereby a couple of coaches left within the foundation phase at Mansfield, and I was just kind of right in position, ready for it, and I kind of took a role as one of the coaches of the under 10s age group at the time, and that was the 21-22 season, I think it was, maybe even the 2021 season. And the rest is history. Kind of gone from there and got my UEFA B and got my UEFA C in that time as well, actually. Now UEFA B, got my FA Youth Award. I've qualified in various areas, and it's been a whirlwind. It really has been a whirlwind since then. So that's I mean, I've not really came up for air on that one, but I thought I'd give you a bit of a history on it.
You mentioned loving the game of college soccer and working with those players with Future Pro, but then you talk about the coaching at such a young age, the U7s, and building up. What is it about coaching those younger players that you enjoy so much?
It is so pure. So pure. They don't care about anything other than a ball being at their feet, and they don't care about anything other than just enjoying being there. And I think it's the innocence of it, and it's that excitement that they have when they come down the steps. Simon Ward, I had a coaching at Mansfield, another fantastic bloke. He ran that. He said to us, he says, if those kids don't run down those steps coming onto our Astro where we train, we're doing something wrong. And I love the fact that they come with a smile on their face every time. Again, they're not bothered about anything other than just having a ball at their feet. They're not worried about, pro contracts yet. They obviously want to be young footballers. That's why they're there. Obviously, an academy environment is very different to a grassroots environment. It would be wrong to say otherwise. But I think that innocence and that youthful enthusiasm for it reminds me of everything that I had at that age, and I'm sure that all of us have had at that age as well. So I think that everyone in the game, well, I say not everyone, that's wrong to say, but I think most people have a desire to work with the older age groups because it's the real game, right? In inverted commas, it's the real game. It's the 11v11 game. It's this, it's that. But I very early realised that's where I want to be right now. I want to be able to impact positively those young players, give them a base, a foundation to build off. So when they go through the age groups, they will look back and they've seen the influence I've had on them, not only as players, obviously we're there to develop them as young players, obviously, but did they have a brilliant childlike experience? It shouldn't become professional too soon. And I think with my personality and with kind of the way that I see things, the way that I see youth development at that age, I thought that I'd be a good fit for it. And so far, I've not been told that I've not been. So far, so good. But that's what I love about it. It's that innocence.
One of the things that pops in my head is you left the UK when, Mansfield Town, kind of the academy, disappeared because of where they were in the league. But now to hear that you're in the academy, coaching again, kind of building it up, that's almost full circle. What's that been like to see? You kind of had to make a little change. I'm going to go to the US to play because I need to keep rocking and rolling, love the game. And now to come back and be part of helping the club move its way up and improve overall.
Honestly, Kieron, that's the thing that I'm most grateful for, is that opportunity. As you said it there, nail on the head, to go full circle. Because again, I have, all my mates in the playground at school, let's say, when I was growing up, they all wore a Man United top, a Liverpool top, a City top, whatever. And I was the Mansfield fan. I was known as the big Mansfield fan who went to the games with my mum, with my granddad, and that was kind of the footing that I had, that I started on, rather. So again, like you say, to kind of go to be a part of the club as a young player, to being on the terraces with them that whole time, watching the first team, and to be in the position that I'm in now, it's something that I am so grateful for. And I think that I spoke a lot about this, I've recently completed my UEFA B, as I just mentioned, and on that course, I think that one thing that I spoke about a lot when I'm doing my projects, and I was talking about kind of my influences on how I coach, is because I absolutely love the club. I absolutely love kind of the environment that we've created. It's everything that I would want my club to be about. I think that there's something when I speak to other people within football circles in terms of, the academy coaching, and they might be fans of the clubs that they're working at as well, and they feel really lucky, but they're thinking, well, hang on a minute, this isn't what I'd like my club to be like. My club, when I speak about the foundation phase where we work in particular, it's everything that I would want my club's foundation phase to look like, because of the environment that we set and the experience that we give to those kids. So, like I say, something that I'm very grateful for. It's something that I know that I'm very proud of. I know that my mum in particular, who was the reason that I started going to watch Mansfield, very proud of that as well. So yeah, it's an extra. It's a thing that adds another layer that makes it extra special for me to do what I do.
You've mentioned the courses, UEFA B, UEFA C, and what have you, and there's always discussion back and forth about those types of things. When you think about those courses, what are some of your positive takeaways from those experiences?
I think that the biggest things for me, and the course sort of leads, if you like, of who led my UEFA B, my youth award, but absolutely brilliant. But I think it's the people that you meet on the courses personally. We were on a course, so my UEFA B was coaches from Mansfield, from Grimsby Town. We had some Lincoln City coaches on there, Rotherham United, loads of clubs sort of in the local area in particular. And you understand through speaking to people, if you are a sponge, as people like to say, and you want to take in everyone else's experiences, and you want to take in the information they've got to give with you, it's those people that make the courses. The course is obviously the course, and again, I've not done my licenses in the US, so I'm not sure how they differ, but it's the people on them, in my opinion, that make up the experience. And I think that, number one, it's the fact that you don't have to agree with everything. I think that there's no right or wrong. That's probably the biggest thing. I think that the people that talk in kind of sort of final terms of, you must do it like this, I think in more cases than not, they're probably wrong, because there's so many different ways of going about youth development, so many different ways about going various things. And I think, again, listening and learning to other people's experiences and being humble enough to accept that your way is not the only way. I think that is probably the biggest takeaway that I've got. And I was really lucky as well, by the way, because before I even went on my UEFA B, I arrived at a point, like I said, when I took the role of being, an age group coach in the foundation phase. At that time, I was only an FA level 1 qualified coach. So technically, I was nowhere near where I needed to be. You have to be a UEFA B or working towards a UEFA B to be an academy coach from an audit perspective, for EFL academies. So the club were gambling on me a little bit by, having me in that place. But again, I have to give credit to Jack, who believed in me right from the start and thought I would be somewhat of an asset. I think that I was fortunate enough to be around people like Jack, like Simon, all the people at the club that I've been able to work, that I've been able to learn from, to give me that sort of stable base. To when I went on my UEFA B, there was nothing on there that was kind of daunting, and nothing on there that kind of hadn't really seen or heard before, because I was around such great people and learning from such great people as well. So yeah, the courses were full of information, full of great people, and that's probably my biggest takeaway, I would say, is that there's so many different ways of doing it.
So here you are, you're clearly moving your way up the ranks at Mansfield Town. Is there an ultimate goal for Brad, or are you just kind of one of those that I'm in the moment, or do you have aspirations to continue to move up in the club, or as maybe opportunities open themselves up, you'd be looking at those as well?
Well, I think that I'm in a unique position, first and foremost, because my first love and my priority is Future Pro USA. I adore this place, what we've built over 8 years. I don't see myself going anywhere anytime soon. We've got a lot to accomplish still. We've got more players to help. We've got more to improve upon. We've got more to do. So that's my priority. In terms of coaching, again, because of the unique position I'm in, where I'm at Mansfield, and I'm a part-time coach. We do obviously get paid as academy coaches, but it's a hobby that you get paid for. That's the way that I look at it. My goals kind of are allowed to be a little bit more kind of less pressured, because I'm not looking to go into full-time coaching. I'm looking to make our business at Future Pro USA the best it can possibly be, give the best experience to our clients. That's one priority. My coaching can be driven by the love of the club, the love of coaching young players. So I think that in terms of my goals set within those parameters, firstly, I speak about this with Jack, with Simon at Mansfield. I want to be the best sort of under 9 specialist coach I can be. I want to be a positive introduction for academy players of that age, because again, players can only become an academy player officially at the age of under 9s. So if I can be the best under 9s coach that I can possibly be, and hopefully position myself as the best introduction that our players that come into our building have at the age of 8 years old when they become an academy player, that's what I'm working towards at the moment. I obviously want to do more qualifications. I want to do more. I want to learn more. I want to be around more people, but that's kind of my short-term goal at the minute. And again, I'm really fortunate that I've got the love of my life, which is Future Pro USA, and I get to be involved in college soccer every day, but I also get to be with my other love, which is Mansfield Town Football Club and coaching as well. So that's kind of the short-term view for me. Whatever happens after that with coaching, that's something I'll think about and roll with the punches as it goes.
When we hopped on here, we started talking about Christmas and spending time with family. I asked you earlier about the decision to go over to the States and play. What was it like? You talked about mom being excited for you to be back and be coaching at Mansfield Town. What's it been like for them to see you kind of, we almost used I hate to say full circle again, but you've gone away, you've come back. What's it been like for them to see your growth and where you're at now?
You probably have to ask them firstly, but I know that they're proud, and they're very proud people. My mum and dad are my heroes, and I'm very, very fortunate again that I've had the upbringing that I've had, that I've been given the opportunities that I've had that a lot of kids I'm sure don't get. So that's the first thing. I'm so grateful to them for their attitude towards taking on new challenges and being brave enough to take those opportunities when they come, whether they are 3,000, 4,000 miles away or not. I think that again, like I say, my mum was the one that sort of introduced me to football. Most people, it's lads and dads, isn't it? But for me, it was my mum. My mum has been a season ticket holder at Mansfield since she was a young lass herself, and my granddad got me involved with it as well. My dad goes to the games every now and again, but it was generally my mum that got me involved with that. So again, I know for her it's very special. My nana as well, so my grandmother, she's a massive Mansfield fan as well, season ticket holder herself. So we're a massive Mansfield family. You're getting the picture here, aren't you? That we're massive about football. We're massive about Mansfield Town. So for them to see me in this position, I'm sure they're proud now, and hopefully I'm making them proud.
You said earlier when people said you'd be a really good coach, it was kind of a backhanded comment, but what was it that you think people see and that you bring to the table that people would say, you know what, Brad, you could be a really good coach?
Again, I suppose that's a question that I'd rather other people answer, but since you've asked me, I'd say probably that just enthusiasm for football. again, I knew my limitations as a player. I was fortunate enough, again, to have a really good upbringing in terms of academy environment, and obviously then going over to the States and playing at some good levels. And I probably did get the most out of what my abilities were, various points of when I was playing. But I always had an enthusiasm. One thing that I would back myself at, again, I was very self-aware. I knew maybe from an early-ish age that maybe I was always going to go towards advancing into the pro game if I could, but I probably knew deep down, especially looking back now retrospectively, maybe that was going to be a bridge too far. But I always backed my enthusiasm, I backed my knowledge, I backed my football intelligence, people like to call it. I hate using that phrase, but I think most people will call it that. But I always back that, and also as well, I like being a leader as well, and I like affecting people positively. I think when you're coaching, I think that's ultimately what it is. Whether you are coaching, teaching, whether it's in a school environment, whether it's a football, another sport, or whatever, you're there to positively impact that person, not just through kind of the technical aspect or the tactical aspect or whatever corner of the game it might be that you're coaching in or environment that you're in. It's about affecting them positively as people as well. And I think I've always got on with people. I've always enjoyed getting on with people and helping people. That's, for me, the foundation of any good coach. They want to help people ultimately. Everything else comes as an extra, doesn't it? But you have to be a person that wants to help people. And I think that's probably the thing that's been foundational for me.
Last question is that I always love to ask coaches is Brad able to turn off the soccer brain? You talk about the love of Future Pro USA, the love for Mansfield Town. What does Brad do to kind of like just get away? I don't know if we can have coach life balance. Is that something Brad's able to do? And if so, what do you do to achieve that?
Brad can do it, but he's not very good at it. I'd say that much. I'm getting better at it. I'll be honest. I think that as I do get older, I'm still a young professional, and I've got a long way to go. I've achieved a fair bit, and there's plenty that I look back and think that, yeah, you've done all right there, mate. But ultimately, I know that I've got a long way to go. I struggle to switch off, whether it is primarily again with Future Pro USA. That's my love, and I'm always on. I'm always getting told off by Olivia, my fiance, for checking my emails at silly o'clock at night, and hearing the tip tapping on my keyboard at stupid o'clock in the morning. When I'm sending emails or whatever. But that's what fuels me. That is something that I can't really sort of come back from, because that relentlessness and that kind of like that energy I've got for it. That's why I do it. If I didn't want to do it, I wouldn't. That's what I always tell her. So again, it is hard to step back sometimes. I do have times where I can feel myself getting a little bit tired and a little bit sort of run down by it all, because you put so much into it. Actually, I am getting better at switching off a little bit. Recently took a trip to Dublin with Olivia, and that was brilliant, because I put my phone down for a couple of days and had a little bit of a breath to myself, and had a few pints of Guinness with her, and that was good. But I think that you are always on. I think that's just my opinion, that if you want to be successful and you do love what you do, I think you do always want to be on. Now, that doesn't mean you should be at it every single hour of the day, because you do have a responsibility to the people that you serve. Whether it's for me, for Future Pro USA, my clients, or the lads that I work with at Mansfield, the staff that I work with elsewhere in all capacities, you've got a responsibility to keep yourself fresh and to be the best, the best version of you each time you enter that environment. So you do need to regulate, and you do need to look after yourself. But I think that it is something that I'll always be looking to get better at, but I can't see myself ever wanting to be one of these people that turns my phone off at 6 o'clock. It's just not me. It's just not what I do. It's not what the people that I surround myself with do as well. So we want to be on all the time, because it's what we love to do, and I don't see that changing. I really don't.
Brad, that's awesome, and a great way to shut this thing down. This is Kieron, Coach's Corner Chats with Brad Rodda, and I'm out. Peace.